Okay, hello and welcome back to our Turbowarp space shooter tutorial series. In the last video we designed our ship and animated it, and in this video now we're gonna make it controllable with the arrow keys. So to make the ship move with the arrow keys is actually pretty simple. All we have to do is if key space press, then change this to right arrow. We change X by 10. So the sprite basically moves in two main directions, up and down and left and right. That's on the y-axis and on the x-axis. So we change X by 10 just means move to the right by 10 pixels. So we can right click and duplicate that. Make this left arrow -10, then up arrow. And if you're using Turbowarp, you can just right click on this, change Y, and then change Y, then down arrow. And then next we add a forever script to this so it checks all the time. To make a script run, this green flag is like the default button. It's like a play button for Scratch basically. That's like the default play button. So we're going to change it eventually, but for now let's just use that. So now whenever we click the green flag, the play button, the script runs. You can tell by this yellow outline that's around it. So now when we press the arrow keys, the ship moves up, down, left, right? So that's okay, that's good. If you're satisfied with this, you can just leave it at that. But this isn't very realistic and it's kind of amateurish. Okay, the ship moves at a constant speed. It stops immediately you stop pressing the arrow keys. You know, movement is kind of stiff. Alright, so how do we fix that? We need to add mass to the ship. We need to add velocity. And how do we do that? We use a variable. So we're going to create a new variable called x velocity, or xvel for short. Click OK. So now when we press the right arrow, we change x velocity by, let's say, 1. And then left arrow, we change x velocity by -1. And then we change X by X velocity. Okay, so what happens is if we press the arrow key, the X velocity changes by 1 each time. So we press the arrow key just a little bit, X velocity is 1, the ship moves slowly. We press the arrow key again, you see that it gets a little bit faster, and the more we press, the faster the ship gets. So you can see that kind of adds momentum to it. It doesn't just start immediately. It doesn't just stop instantly. Immediately stop pressing the arrow keys either. Okay, so this is kind of good, except even if you stop pressing the keys, as you can see, the ship still continues moving. We need it to stop moving, or at least slow down to a stop when you stop pressing the arrow keys. So we're going to introduce friction to the script now. That's also very easy to add. All we have to do is set xvel to xvel times any number that's smaller than 1 but greater than 0, so 0.5 for starters. So now let's see. As you can see, now we press the arrow keys. You can see it reduces gradually before it actually goes back to 0. Now our ship is very stiff, but we can just make it move a little bit faster by increasing the number of steps the velocity changes each time. So now you can see now it's a little bit more, it's a little bit better, but it still looks stiff. But you can clearly see from the variable that it's slowing down gradually before it gets to 0. Okay, so let's increase this. Let's increase the friction a little bit. Let's make it 8. Yes. Now you can see that it doesn't stop instantly anymore. It kind of slows down slightly. Okay, this is exactly what we want. I still think this is a bit too fast, so let's make this 2. Yes. See how 7 does with this. So 7 still seems a bit stiff. I think we'll just go with 8. We can still edit this later on. Okay, so next we need to modify this so it moves on the y-axis as well. Okay, so the same way we did that, we just use up arrow, change. Okay, no, we need to create a new variable called yvel. Change yvel by 2, then down arrow, change y val by 2, and change y by y val, and set y val to y val times 0.8. To change this here, you can just right click on it, or you can drag in the y val block from here. Okay, so now it works on the x-axis and on the y-axis as well. So now you can kind of see the ship looks like it has some sort of mass. Now that our ship has some velocity, we can add something else. We can add tilting to the ship. Okay, quick explanation time. By default, sprites in Scratch point towards the right. Okay, every sprite's direction by default is 90. That's to the right. 0 is up. Okay, let me show you on the dial here. So point in direction 90. Can you see? Every sprite points in this direction by default. So you can change the direction. 0 is up, backwards is -90, straight down is 180. You get. So the way our ship looks now, it's pointing up, obviously, but Scratch doesn't know that, or Turbowarp doesn't know that. It assumes this is where our sprite is pointing. So if we say point in direction 0, you can see our sprite actually points up now, because the wing that was pointing to the right before is now pointing up. All you want to do is make it point in direction x velocity, right? So now whenever we move, you can see the sprite kind of tilts slightly. However, we don't want our ship to be pointing sideways like this. So there's two ways to fix this. One, either make the sprite actually point to the right in the costume, so it fixes it here. But if like me, you've already created a bunch of ships, then you're gonna have to manually move and adjust each of them one by one, and I don't want to do that. So another way you can do it, if you have only one ship, this way works fine. In fact, it's easier, it's simpler, and it's more straightforward. But if you have a bunch of ships like mine, you can just change it in the code. So you say point in direction x vel plus 90 degrees, and that fixes it. Okay, so now our ship tilts slightly, but the tilt is still way too small. I want it to tilt a bit more. So let's multiply x vel times 3. There we go. See, now that's so much better. So we can see our ship looks way cooler. Let's make it 5. Okay, I think 5 is a little bit too much. How about 4? I think 4 is okay. So now one last thing before we end this series, we want to add limits so our ship's moving. Oh, you're right, our ship is still way too big at this point. Let's just reduce the size to, let's say, 40. 40 is still too big. I know it looks pretty small, but you need to remember that we're going to add a bunch of other characters on the screen. There's going to be other players, enemy ships for you to shoot, and probably some stuff in the background as well, not to mention our GUI and all. So probably safer if we go a bit smaller. There we go. I think 30 is good. Alright, now the way it is, when we move to the edges of the screen, you can see our sprite kind of goes almost all the way in. Thankfully, Turbowarp doesn't let it go off screen completely, so you don't lose your sprite. But we need it to still stay, completely on the screen, not entering the sides at all. So we're going to add limits to the movement. How do we do that? We go to Control, say if these reporter blocks here, X position is less than, what do we want our minimum X position to be? This is -201. So let's say it's less than -200. Then we need to set the X position to -200. So we put that in here. So no matter how much we press the arrow keys, it never goes past that point. Okay, we need to do the same thing for the right side. That's easy. We just change all of these negative values to positive values, and we change this to greater than sign. Okay, so now the sprite doesn't go past that, it stays on screen all the time. Okay, so we need to repeat the same thing for the y-axis as well. Let's check our minimum y position. This is -152, so you can just duplicate this. Right click, changes to y position. If it's less than, let's say, -150, and then set y to -150. Change this to set y as well. I'm about to change all these blocks. Change this to 150. set y to 150. Okay, so be sure to check your code and be very careful not to change the wrong thing, or leave something unchanged. Okay, otherwise it's not going to work, obviously. Okay, yeah, we have that now. It stays on screen at all times. But there's another way we can clean this up a little bit further. Okay, so in Scratch we have custom blocks. For those that have experience in other programming languages, this is basically a function. So custom blocks, basically blocks that you can define to make your code cleaner. How do I mean? You create a custom block, whatever it is. Let's just create a random custom block now. Click OK. So you create a block here, you put some code under it. So this definition here says define this block. Everything under here is squished into this one block. So wherever you put this block, this code runs, as you can see. Okay, so it's a very nice way to reuse. If you want this code in a bunch of places and you don't want it to stretch out for this long, you can just use a custom block. But it has so many more uses. Okay, we'll get to using custom blocks. We're going to be using custom blocks a lot throughout this course, so you understand them more as we go on. But for now, let's just get to this one. So right click on the definition, click edit, and then you say limits. Okay, then add limits x, add an input x and more text, y, add another input y, and then click OK. So now limits, the x limits are 200, right? So we say 200. So if x position is greater than 200, set x to 200. That works. Right, so this space here is what's here. So whatever we write in here is what this reports, and then automatically what goes in here and here as well. Same thing with y. Alright, I hope that makes sense. So the same thing for the other side, but if we put this here, this is still going to report 200. What we need here is a minus 200. So how do we convert this? That's easy. We can just say nothing minus x, and that will give us minus the value of x. Okay, so now that works too. Just to show you that it actually works, because it seems like nothing changed. Can you see? Now that we remove that, it still goes into the sides of the screen. But we put that back. See? Now it works. Alright, so the same thing for the y. So as you can see, now the y is stuck at the middle of the screen. It can't go up or down because there's nothing in here. So that's basically 0. And that's the coordinates for the y. 0 at the middle of the screen. So we want this to be 150. So now we go up, it works. We come down, this is still here. If we delete these, then it goes off. So we need to put these as negative as well. We'll change this to y, or you can just drag in the y from the top here. Duplicate this and then put it here. So now we have our limits again, but now it's easier to edit. So we can say limits 100, and then it just boxes it in a small square on the screen right there, as you can see. So you can see how these can be very useful. Right, so let's just set this back to 200 and 150. Okay, so that's it for this episode, in this video. In the next video, we're going to add lasers to our ship. We're going to make our ship be able to shoot. Okay, so I'll see you in the next video.